Just like you say, you could link to satellites. What if you were the only person, the only outlet? You'd be like a telegraph station back in the frontier. The only place where people could go get news, information, or money transfer. That is just a bizarre idea there. I mean, not even bizarre. It's likely.
No, just looking back in history and see how things came and went in terms of communication value, and you hit it. A lot of the telegraph stations, because they were broadcasting this type of information about transfers and things, they had their own armed guards in the stations.
Yeah.
And those guys were willing to work for things that were not available for the general populace because they were in that information flow even on the telegraph line. So they had their own private, security guards working for them.
Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age Conversations covers changes in our climate due to a new and intensifying grand solar minimum. In the media, overlooking, downplaying, or burying cold weather changes occurring on our planet. This is in order to keep the global warming agenda steaming full speed ahead. I do this podcast and radio program because we need to begin conversations on how to adapt our food growing strategies long before 2030 as agricultural zones shift, affecting global crop output, but very few mainstream media outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time, cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David DuByne, creator of the Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age 2015 to 2035 video series. As Americans seek economic protection after the most controversial election in U.S. history, year to date in 2020 alone, gold is up 30% and silver rising more than 50%. And now we're entering a new year facing economic realities of a global economic crisis caused by COVID and political reactions. Patriot Gold Group has the No Fee for Life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or physical silver. And the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 5 years in a row from 2016 to present. To find more information, the link's in the description box below. And now on with the video.
All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this planet. My name is David DuByne, your host, and I'm here with Ransom from 420 TV, Freedom is Films. We were tossing some ideas about the collapsing economy, the evaporating economy, and the total reset into something else, where a deflationary event's going to hit first, followed by hyperinflation. I think people are going to be a bit freaked out when their money doesn't buy as much. How do you think Americans will really digest it when they need a wheelbarrow full of $100 bills to go buy a loaf of bread?
We went to Sonic the other night because of the shortage of beef and the high demand, because they're the only, box stores open. And people aren't buying groceries, and they're not growing food, and they're not buying really groceries. It's easier to go to the GMO fast food thing and get you some food. But don't worry, on Tuesdays, you can buy 2-for-1 cheeseburgers, but you might not get a cheeseburger for the rest of the week because of limited supplies. Sorry about that.
I guess I'm shopping on that day. Think local. Think seasonal.
Tuesday.
You're going to have to think about, when apples come in season, buy an enormous amount. When pumpkins come in season, buy like super extra amounts, then store them, to try to use them through a different season. And here's another thing. Just to drive the point home here, Ford Motor Company opened, and then a couple people come in sick, and they close the plant back down after 2 days. What happens when they try to open that chicken processing plant or that beef processing plant, and then people are sick, they're going to close it back down again? This is going to be a never-ending whack-a-mole of sick, open, sick, open. We're going into a famine here. I tell you what, not even a food shortage on the planet, not even a food shortage in America. Unless you grow your own, you are not going to be able to get the meats and things that you're looking for. I think in California that they fully planted this year's vegetable crop, that they're going to be bringing in just an enormous amount of fresh veg that you're so used to. Think we're going to be able to import that from Mexico with the border closed all the time? Really?
Yeah.
doing it on purpose to limit the food supply. So then you're at the behest of the government to either get the vaccine or you don't eat. You're going to have to get the vaccine to be able to get your digital currency wallet on the Fed coin. If you don't have the vaccine, you can't prove proof of vaccination. You cannot get money deposited into your wallet with the stimulus.
Yeah. You won't even get your socialist check there. And why would Mexico, having a hard time and already being a socialist country, basically with the new socialist president there, I guess he's not new anymore, but he's already cracking down with the military on his people that are tripping out about the virus. You think that they're going to be shipping us food when the millions of Mexicans are hungry and they know that they have food right there in their own country? It ain't coming up here. Cartels,
borders are closed.
All of that, they're going to take all that food. They've already had wars before the COVID down there about the avocado farms and the cartel telling people who they're going to sell it to, how much they're going to produce, all of that. Who's going to work there? There's been, military actions against Native Americans who live in Mexico that didn't want to grow corn no more, but nobody cares about that as long as Walmart gives you a 30-cent can of GMO corn. And even that be something that you're going to be maybe happy to have in the near future because it's the only thing at the store. And what if you don't get your chip, you can't go to McDonald's and you can't go to Burger King and you can't go to any of the participating restaurants because the other patrons, the Karens in there, are scared of you and don't want you to come in anyway. So you have to prove that you're clean. It reminds me of this old Twilight Zone about this guy that he hired the service or something to quit smoking, and they put this weird mark on his head, and then the little thing flew around him, and nobody would talk to him anymore because he was a smoker. It's kind of like that, except for it's about the virus. The little AIs are flying around. Nobody will talk to you. You'll be socially shunned on top of being socially distanced, and your social credit score will be worthless, and then you won't even be able to participate in any digital currencies at all because you're an undesirable citizen. A deplorable. I think they already got you used to a name. Incrementalism.
You can't boil the frog. You got to slow cook it.
Some people think I'm nuts, but I'm getting pretty good with predictions of stuff I was just guessing at when I was young.
Well, throw us another one. I am all ears because I'm really trying to see the future the best I can with so many voices that have ideas about the future. And us as thinking beings, we should take all the information that we can get or hear. There should be no censorship about ideas. So listen to it, determine if it's right, wrong for you, and then let it go. Why should I stop this voice from speaking? Just because I may or may not agree with it. What's the problem with people talking, having thoughts? Use your own minds, people. Right. If you agree or disagree, great, but let people speak. You should be smart enough to determine if you think that's BS or not, or if you're wading through it. So let's hear it, Ransom. Kick it off, and I'm ready. I'm sitting here with pen and paper. I'm ready for some Nostradamus type.
I think there's going to be a positive wave first, and hear me out why I think this, because they've tensed everyone out, the public, the world. They've tensed us out twice in a row for about a decade at a time. I have a feeling this may last quite a while, like, a good portion of a decade. Just like 9/11 or any financial turmoil, it's a decade thing people remember. And they like to do that on constant things. So we're going into this new decade, and we're going to have to deal with all these new things that they just got us used to. But they're going to give us a party time for a little while. Things are going to get better for just a little while, and then everybody's going to relax and let their guard down again. And then they're going to have faith in the government. Look, they brought it back. Everything's good now. And then they'll tell you, hey, you got to stay home again because, like here in New Mexico, they're already telling you, hey, you might want to stay in even more now because the first case of West Nile virus is back. We deal with that every summer, but now they're going to intensify the fear factor of the virus for this summer or whatever. And then they're going to give us probably a bubble right after some kind of, in my opinion, something really bad in the fall, but you'll be used to it. You won't be shocked, and really get a hold of every little bit of what's left of anybody's family wealth. And I wanted to bring up this article right here. The collapse will be very visible. For lease, space available, for sale, for rent. These are something that I've been already noticing for the last 10 years. It's going on overdrive now. I've been driving around. People have everything up for sale. They're desperate for money. They're desperate to lock down their future. And guess who's going to jump on this with the collapsing value of the money is, of course, the banks, which they have been for a long time. And if you been paying attention, the banks own most homes in the United States. They're not owned by families anymore. Generational wealth has finally disappeared from the bygone era of, prosperity and capitalism that a lot of families have enjoyed and built some wealth to. Those are going to be gone. So even the pretty, what people thought were rich people or upper middle class, they had businesses, they collected money, they bought properties, they were smart with their money, shame on them, but whatever. Now all of this stuff's up for sale. And you're going to be seeing a lot of closings all the way. I was actually tripping on this already. They're declaring bankruptcy and closing hundreds of stores. So now you can't even go get the clothes that you wanted to get, even though they were already overpriced. This is totally preparation and training for something close to the fall of the Soviet Union that they dealt with in our time. I remember watching it as a young person on television, where people were buying tanks and stuff like that for a lot cheaper than they could get eggs, bread, milk, etc. Meat. Come on. They weren't buying steak. They were happy to get a potato. They were happy to get a turnip. They were happy to get a loaf of bread for $500. If you think that won't happen here, you're kind of nutty, because it can happen anywhere. But I think they're going to give us a good time first, and they're going to let you spend what you believe is your disposable money on a bunch of garbage that you don't need. It's the perfect time to go waste some money and give it to a multi-billion-dollar company like Sony or Samsung or somebody and buy you a big stupid TV that you don't need. If you've noticed, even poor people have 5 or 6 plasma TVs right now. We are living no different than somebody in a mud hut in the middle of a third world country, except for we got a lot of trinkets. But as far as day-to-day eating, drinking, and protection, we're not that far off from anybody else in the world. All right, there's my little rant. I'll shut up.
You hit that right on the head there. So if you're going to preserve wealth and be able to come in and swoop up a bunch of these assets and then use them for good, because think about if you're able to buy farmland, or you're able to buy an enormous amount of acreage, that then if you wanted to start something where people could come and grow food and have sort of a co-op situation where people could trade their labor for food, you need the land to do that. So why would you not want to help and better humanity by providing spaces that you could soup up for pennies on the dollar to then put out there and allow other people? Because I think the laws of this whole litigious society suing everybody for this, that, and the other, I think that's going to be hopefully going out of the way, where if you come on my property and we're going to grow food together, you don't trip on a stone because you were talking on your iPhone and then fall down and go, I'm suing you, I'm going to take your property because I was an idiot looking on my iPhone. But being able to preserve wealth, to jump in and swoop up these assets here, because you don't want to stand in the line and being, spending $500 for an egg when you saved an ounce of silver, and that silver suddenly worth $4,000 an ounce, and you can go buy the chicken and a hen house. Digital currency, people hate it and they're like, it's the mark of the beast. No, my friends, the mark of the beast is that they're going to slam in your arm that's already pre-programmed with a digital chip that activates once they put the chip in your arm. Then you're tagged, and it goes into the cloud database when you were tagged, where you were tagged, what you were tagged with, what batch it was. That's the mark of the beast. You going in to buy a bunch of Digibyte or Stellar Lumens or Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever, you're going to have to learn that. You're going to have to adopt. You're going to have to learn what a digital wallet is anyway. So why don't you protect yourself? And this is not financial advice. Like, if you can see the world screaming towards digital currency, you probably want to understand what it is and maybe get in a little early on some actual real tradable, usable digital currencies, crypto that's going to be used in the future, and also understand how metals preserved wealth through history, and then kind of combine the two, because silver is super cheap right now. It's still at $20, $22, $23 an ounce, even with the absurd premiums. And then again, they're like, do you want it or you don't want it? Shut the hell up. Give me my $5 premium or go somewhere else. Oh, you can't, because it's hard to get physical silver now. Well, looking out forward into the future, if you're going to be getting $2,000 an ounce for that same silver round, I'm like, okay, I'll take this many. Thank you very much for even having it today. Think about how to preserve wealth. Your best teacher is a history book. We're going through these repeating cycles right now. We're repeating cycles of history, finance, collapse, the grand solar minimum cycle, and the civilization cycle itself. So knowing where we've been in history and where we're going, we're at a culmination of so many cycles right now. We're at the culmination, in my personal opinion, of the civilization cycle on the 3,600-year turn, the grand solar minimum on its 400-year turn, which is 9 cycles of 400-year equals a 3,600-year. And then we're also in the fourth turning, which is the 80-year cycle and the generational. Again, it comes down to economy, generational wealth, and this whole cycle of war and wealth on an 80-year cycle. But 5 of those cycles is a 400-year cycle. So you can keep stepping down and then 4 of those fourth turnings is a 20-year cycle. And you talked about it on the decade. That's 2 of those. So we can keep bringing it down, either, infinitesimally small, or we can scale it out onto the multi-million year cycles. But our Earth's going through cycles too, glaciation cycles, and here we are. We're back at least multiple civilization cycle, grand solar minimum, fourth turning, all lapping on top of each other right now. We should understand history much better than we do. And I'll stop there. And how prepared are you for the transition into the grand solar minimum? Are you prepared for emergencies? Our friends at My Patriot Supply do have long-term, storable, and emergency food supplies. The 2-week grab-and-go food crate or the 4-week emergency food supply. They also have a large range of water filtration and items you can use yourself to get ready, such as Mylar bags, oxygen packs, things you can use to DIY your own long-term storable foods, and a host of different survival items that you might not have thought about during your preparations. Use the Adapt 2030 link in the description box below, and while you're there, take a look at the selection of heirloom seeds, because you're going to have to grow some of your own food moving forward into the new Eddy Grand Solar Minimum. Take back your peace of mind by knowing that you're prepared when others might not be.
Well, those are great ideas electronically, a lot of that stuff. I always thought about not being a person of big wealth. There are other ways, though, that you could make sure that you have currency in the future. So you did get silver's number one in my book because of its use as money, as a metal, and also as antibiotics. So that's going to be something that you could trade with or use anywhere.
Wait, talk about the antibiotics properties of silver for a second. So anybody out there, I'm curious too, because please, I want to learn from you. Tell me something more.
It has, just on contact, colloidal silver will kill bacteria, but you can use electrolysis and make colloidal silver, and you can make gallons and gallons and gallons off of it. Basically, you're just taking silver particles off of any silver money or silver, pure silver that you have, at least some high grade silver, and you can make gallons of it. But besides that, you can use that water to wash things and sanitize things like your plates and your whatever. You're living outside, and you're not going to be going to buy Lysol every day if there is some kind of major problems, but you can have silver, and it does work for most things. Now, it's not a cure-all. It's way better than not having nothing, and most things aren't resistant to it. And then on top of that, you could do things like a certain kind of plant, per se, or fungus, or, any number of very rare, valuable compounds or nutrients that are found in things. You could make blocks of those, literally making your own currency. This is worth this much to you. And then on top of that, tools. And if you really want to know something that's been a secret to the money funders all of this time since the creation of banks, is that you can create emergency after emergency after emergency, but there's a few things that will always make money no matter what situation. They will make money in good times. They will make money in bad times, and that's vices. You want to invest in alcohol. All of these things will allow you to ride the system and gain a little bit of wealth before things start collapsing. But like I said, you can use things that are not even money that people just don't think about. Like, say you have a bunch of rechargeable batteries and solar hookups that you could sell, like those pocket sockets. Think about if you had foresight to maybe have a warehouse of stuff like this, and then you stashed it somewhere. Most people didn't think about that, but you imagine how much money you could make from just everybody that you came across with a pocket socket where they could go look at their family pictures and all that if we did have a complete grid failure, and we're in the Stone Age, basically. I mean, think about it. If there's no electricity, we're in the Stone Age. Except for, tools and blah, blah, blah. Well, all of those things you can make money off of, but you can have the foresight to trade things that you don't need to eat that people will want, like Vice. I didn't want to get too specific with those plants and fungals, but there's going to be a need for them and a want for them, a demand for them, because there has been throughout human history.
I remember seeing this movie where a woman walked around with her phone after a grid down situation because this phone contained the last photo that she had of her son on this phone. She carried that phone around and was looking for the exact same type of person or service or electronics that anybody could provide so she could see her son on the phone one last time. The whole movie was about her carrying this around in her quest to get that photo so she could see that one image. It was riveting, and I cannot remember the name of the movie. It was based on sort of a sci-fi thing. Going to sci-fi, let me throw another thing. Now, you guys might make fun of me for saying this, and please mock away, but with all the satellites that are in such low Earth orbit right now, I do believe that if you had a ground station that was able to capture one of these satellites with an uplink from your ground station, you would be able to broadcast cryptocurrency transactions into that satellite network, which quantum is one. Instead of having the network medium of using the internet to be able to verify transactions on the blockchain on the ground level, you could still do it in space, like quantum satellite network is one. Elon Musk, all these satellites that he's putting up there is also going to be for some of the same purposes. And they're in very, very low Earth orbit. But you see they come along in strings, and there's going to be tens, hundreds of thousands of these up there. So obviously, in addition to beaming 5G to the planet, they're going to be able to uplink and upload from a base station upward too. So that communication signal is going to come downward to the planet, but it's also going to be able to go upward from our planet to that satellite system. Now, in a grid down situation, if you were to have, say, solar panels and a power bank and be able to run something that let's say internet that you could get in a service, which most people can find in more remote locations. It's expensive per month, but it's available now with our minimal tech. Imagine if you are the only one for, say, 50 square miles that's able to broadcast and receive blockchain transmissions. You would become the new central bank in that area. Because the people that had crypto, they would be able to get access to buy, sell, trade, and then also others who were buying it or being able to receive it. Think about that. You're talking about one thing with the pocket. I'm talking about another with a satellite uplink into being able to broadcast cryptocurrency transactions. Same, but different.
I was thinking about that because you're talking about broadcasting stuff. Another valuable currency is data. Songs, movies, all of the stuff that we take for granted that's digital. People have them backed up, and if there's a way to protect them, you imagine if you decided that you no longer wanted to, and this has nothing to do with any kind of collapse or, bad times coming. Just say right now, say you and all of your neighbors decided that you no longer wanted to pay the internet bill, and you all know that there's torrent type software. So you could connect something that's in every single household in America, which is probably a router and a Wi-Fi setup, and you could connect those from house to house to house to house to house to house to house and trade as a currency data, including but not limited to what you're talking about is information that opens up financial resources that you're cut off from. Just like any cryptocurrency, it's got barriers and stuff like that so that anybody can't just use it. You got keys and encryption and blah, blah, blah. So somebody could carry around a fortune on a thumb drive, but you'd have to use it at some point and interact with somebody else that also has it. Just like you're saying, you could link to satellites. What if you were the only person, the only outlet? You'd be like a telegraph station back in the frontier. The only place where people could go get news, information, or money transfer. That is just a bizarre idea there. I mean, not even bizarre. It's likely.
No, just looking back in history and see how things came and went in terms of communication value. And you hit it. Pony Express, forget that. That was way too slow. That's like trying to put a letter on a ship and sail it across. 4 months later, you receive correspondence. Forget that. Yeah, telegraph stations. But, another thing, a lot of the telegraph stations, because they were broadcasting this type of information about transfers and thing, they had their own armed guards in the stations. Yeah. And those guys were willing to work for things that others were unavailable, that were not available for the general populace, because they were in that information flow, even on the telegraph line. So they had their own private, security guards working for them. And again, if you have this type of infrastructure around you, I guarantee you're going to get a bunch of people that are willing to protect that.
That's that InfraGuard people, man. I'm telling you. They already have all this stuff that we're talking about set up for other groups. The trick is that the public and the civilians also have to have equal capability. Food, it applies to knowledge, teaching and educating yourself, like the data I was talking about, or just entertainment or anything. Imagine all these things we take for granted that are literal currencies of the mind. When they're gone, they're gone. And the access, too.
Fellas, come here, talking about the amount of crab and fish and sturgeon and scallops and these kind of things at a bulk discount right now at different supermarkets. That makes total sense because the institutional buyers are not there. That's why lobster was selling for such a discount, because all the Chinese buyers quit buying. So, had all these lobster boats going out that come in with a regular throughput that the Chinese would buy every day, put on the plane, and then send it over. They all quit buying, but the lobster boats were still going out. And after the last couple rounds of it came through, they saw this huge giant stockpile. So like, all right, we got to sell it in the States because nobody's buying it overseas. We can't even ship it. You're going to find these super price discounts for a little while. But after that makes its way through the supply chain, once those fishermen or once the scallop producers or whatever, they stop doing their trade because, well, there's no money in it and they got burned the last time where they had to sell everything at a discount. How many lobster boats do you think are sailing out at the moment going to continue to fish? Almost none. So after all the lobsters are sold through the supply chain and the pipeline here, when you come back to the second iteration about, 2 weeks or a month out, there'll be nothing there. And you're going to see these massive price spikes. You're getting the first round discount of glut because the institutional buyers are gone. But once they're gone and everything equalizes, when the institutional buyers, come back in, they're going to drive the prices. They're like, we'll pay anything because we got the big money. You little people down there that go to the supermarket, forget it. We'll give you a forward contract and we'll buy out $1 million worth of your lobster and forget that selling it to a supermarket ever again. We'll get it all. And those things are going to start disappearing. And when they do, it's going to go up. But the massive increases in the summertime, they're going to let us party in the summer like it's 1999. And then after that, after your life is forever changed after the summertime. Forget it. You'll party like it's 1999 because it really is. It's the last time we're going to be party, and because the rest of the time is going to be lockdown and crazy shifts in society. So enjoy it to the uber if you can enjoy it. But these gluts of foods and seafoods and all these luxury products, once they make their way through the pipeline, you're never going to see them again. Or if you do, they're going to be so far outside of your price range that you'll be like, why is that 7 times more expensive now? Lobster will come in at $70 a pound or something, or $100 a pound. Can you imagine? That's the next prices you're going to see if you can even get it.
How many of those climate alarmist business people do you think are also in real estate?
I think they've already sold it and they're waiting for the collapse to rebuy it, especially on the seaside. Farm property is fetching a premium right now because everybody wants to get out of the cities. But once the collapse comes, and it's not going to be tomorrow, but give it 2-3 years. I would bet by 2024, if there's such a thing as an economy that we understand in today's form, or even 2023, an ounce of silver will literally buy you an entire beach house.
Yeah.
If it follows history, but it's been like that for 5,000 years of collapse. Hyperinflation collapse, debasement of currency collapse. No fiat has ever collapsed. It always hyperinflates. And then the people stuck in the country, unfortunately, if they didn't protect their wealth, are going to be the ones that get stuck. And there's always somebody to take advantage of that. Like in Austria, after World War I, Austria's money hyperinflated. And that's a super expensive place today. You go downtown somewhere and have a coffee, and you're going to spend $8-10 and you get a strudel, and it's like $20 for a cup of coffee and a strudel. Vienna somewhere downtown. But back then, everything hyperinflated, but all those other countries around still had the sound money. So they could literally walk in, and you get this, a $20 gold piece, and they were able to buy an entire apartment building, 6 floors.
This video is brought to you by our friends at TrueLeafMarket.com. Heirloom and organic seeds for any grow zone on our planet.